So swatting is still happening and is more dangerous than ever, as the story I'm about to share with you proves. I'll also share with you my own experience with being swatted. But first, two men, one from the UK, the other from the US, are being charged with calling in a swatting hoax in early 2015. So obviously, takes a while to work these cases. But if you're somebody who made a prank call like this, I hope you sleep well knowing that it could be years down the road and the police still barge in to take your ass off to jail. But police are taking this very serious. The American contacted the Briton, and the two communicated through various online games in order to come up with a plan to swat a fellow gamer in the US that they didn't like. The British citizen is the one who made the phone call and is now the first Briton to face charges for swatting, so that sounds like it's way overdue. They pretended to be one Tyron Dobbs who lives in Maryland. They called police impersonating him, saying that they had 3 hostages and would kill the hostages if they didn't receive $15,000 delivered to their house. When police arrived, there are conflicting reports of what happened. Tyron Dobbs claims that police used excessive force, but police claim that Tyron was not following orders and his actions could have been interpreted as somebody who indeed had a hostage, because there were 3 other people in the room, and Dobbs' own father told police that there was a gun in the room with them. So not really sure what exactly happened, but either way, in the end, the victim ended up being shot twice with rubber bullets, once in the ribs and one right between the eyes, which busted up his nose pretty bad. And the guy has to be pretty lucky because, I mean, if he was shot in the eye, it definitely would have taken out his eye and could have even possibly killed him by going into his brain. So now those 2 people are facing charges which range from conspiracy to produce false information to calling in a hoax. They are now facing 20 years in prison, which I hope they get the full sentence, because the only thing that's going to deter these types of events from happening is throwing the book at the people and making sure that these people pay. I mean, you are literally placing people in a life or death situation. So I honestly think that they should be charging them with stuff like attempted murder, because when you call in, you're calling in with the intention of sending in a small army with armed weapons to somebody's house, and those weapons are no doubt going to be pointed at somebody. And all it takes is one slight mistake before somebody's going to end up dead. I've also found myself at the end of a gun barrel. I've actually found myself at the end of several of them. One day, I was leaving the house, didn't think nothing about it, was going to go get something to eat. I got one street over in my Jeep, and the next thing I knew, I had at least 15 weapons drawn on me. And there were police in the middle of the road. There were police on both sides of the road, hiding behind trees, full body armor, shields. It was the SWAT team. And they told me to stop my Jeep, put my hands up where they could see them, surrounded my vehicle, gave them my name, and whenever I gave them my name, I heard them come across the radio and say, "That's who we're looking for." And I was like, what? And it was like the most surreal experience I probably ever had. And so they wanted to know who was in my house. And nobody was in my house, so I told them that. And what had happened was I had driven up on them as they were in the process of surrounding my house. And I just happened to get to them before they got to me. And I mean, I swear, I don't think I've ever seen so many cop cars in all my life, especially in this little area. And thankfully, it was a beautiful day that day outside. Like, the weather was just perfect. So I actually had all my windows up at the house. And so I told them that. I said, look, if you want to go look at the house, I said, you can probably look into every single room. The windows are up, so if you say something, people will be able to talk to you back if there was anybody in there, but you're not going to find anybody in there. Only my 2 dogs, and I made sure to tell them about my 2 dogs because I've heard horror stories about cops going in and killing dogs, so I've just begged them not to harm my dogs. But what had happened was that the police had received a phone call, and the person had claimed to be me, and told them that I had a shotgun in my house, and I had it pointed at my sibling's head, and I was going to blow their head off if I laid eyes on one cop. And thankfully, I'm from a town that's fairly small, and some of the cops who were there surrounding me actually knew me. They knew my family. And some of them realized that the story being told wasn't even possible because it was impossible what was being told on the phone call and what my actual real life scenario actually is. But there's a lot of things that could have went wrong. I mean, my foot could have slipped off the clutch as I was driving towards the cops, and I could have been shot. I could have been in the shower at home or on the shitter and not heard or been able to get to the door, and they barge in the house. I mean, this is serious stuff. And I never did say anything about it at the time because even though it probably would have been a popular video, especially if I would have just said I've just been swatted, probably would have got me on drama alert, but I really didn't want whoever did it to know that it happened. I wanted to leave them guessing, and I figured that would be pretty scary in and of itself, because if you had done this to somebody and you were waiting on them to say something publicly to acknowledge it, and they never did, I was hoping maybe that they would have a lot of sleepless nights waiting on the police to come in and barge in on them, and maybe they did. Because talking to investigators, the person who did it apparently didn't know actually where exactly I was, because they called it in on a few people within the region who had my name or who had similar names. And so this was something that affected a lot of people. And I don't blame the cops, because if somebody's life really is in danger, like if you call somebody and you say, hey, somebody's breaking into my house or somebody's got me hostage or whatever, I mean, they have to assume that it's a real threat going on, that somebody's life is in danger, and they have to act. I mean, they don't have 48 hours to do a full investigation and do a trace route and make sure that the phone call actually originated from this place and everything else. They got to act. And so you have the cops and the victims. They're both in a dangerous position, because you got cops who want to go home to their family at night. And if you're a homeowner, you want to protect your home. You want to protect your castle. And a lot of people, especially around my neck of the woods, we all have guns. And so that is a recipe for disaster. And I was extremely lucky. The next victim may not be. And that's why I think these people deserve to be charged with attempted murder or conspiracy to commit murder or something extremely serious, because they are playing with fire. They are playing with deadly, real consequences. And the only way this is going to stop is if you start throwing the books at these people and they start spending 20 years in prison having to watch their back every time they drop the soap in the shower. And maybe then the message will get across that this isn't worth it. I mean, is it really worth throwing your life away for something so stupid that you didn't even get to witness? So anyway, of course it isn't. That does it for me, the Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.